Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective.
Hello and welcome to the COO Collective, a special thought leadership series brought to you by Forbes India in association with ServiceNow. I'm your host, Parumita Chatterjee. Now, today on the show, we'll talk about the special connection that exists between maximizing customer experience and how investments in employee experience can yield rich dividends. So, our theme of discussion today is optimizing employee experience to boost the bottom line. And we've got a stellar lineup of panelists representing diverse industry leaders who are joining us on the show. Let me introduce them to you, starting with Dharmendra Jain, who is the CFO and HR head at Yash Technologies. Amit Mitra, the COO at Broadridge Financial Solutions India Private Limited, which is a fintech player. Hari Vellore, a small finance bank, who is the CEO of ESAF Small Finance Bank. Dr. Guru Vayurappan PV, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Omega Healthcare, and Manoj Kumar Brahma Nayagam, who is Senior Solution Sales Executive, Employee Workflows at ServiceNow. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. So let's start at the very beginning and let's really understand from our panelists here. And Hari, let me start with you about, what do we really mean by an employee experience? I mean, you are heading a bank, a small finance bank. When we talk about maximizing employee experience, what does it mean in your context and in your industry?
Well, generally, I think everybody's been concentrating on the customer experience and employee experience by itself. I don't know how many have actually been, thinking of it. But where we are concerned, I think COVID actually, brought in a whole lot of changes in the way we think of how employees will, how we have to look at the employee experience itself from a technology point of view. Before that, it was more of, how the employees could give a very good experience to customers, maybe using a tablet or making sure the customer doesn't have to come to the bank. And this would be more from a service point of view. But when COVID came into the picture, I think it opened our eyes to how we could protect the employee, keep them safe, while at the same time we could keep business going. And in a bank which is so service oriented, we had multiple challenges. The needs of the customer, it remained. You had to service their need. And I'm not talking of a savings bank customer. We had very, very, small customers who need money every day or who need to deposit money every day. Our customers tend to be of the very low income segment. Our typical loan sizes are 40,000 or so. And we are talking of livelihood. We are not talking of life or, being safe. Unless they work, they don't eat. So the employee at the same time, they have to be kept safe. So how do we balance this? And technology really came to the rescue, I would say, because, we could give solutions to both of them, both the employee who maybe work from home and to the customer who was, doing whatever it was their profession was.
Let me pick up that thought and go across to Dharmendra Jain, or DJ as he likes to be called, who's the CFO and HR head at Yash Technologies. Because while we're talking about the customer getting more and more demanding, and that's part of fulfilling the customer experience, is part of fulfilling that those expectations. But employees have also become very demanding, haven't they, Dharmendra? And how did you as a company address some of these changing needs of employees, both internally and in order to service your customers externally?
Thank you. I think it's a very good question, and definitely. So the first thing in our whole culture is employee is also a customer. So journey begins from there, and definitely from that perspective, we treat every employee, whether he's a trainee, whether he's a mid-level, whether he's high level, everybody is taken up with the same kind of attention by our teams. And just to create a very specific experience, how do you make an employee feel very special? How do you make sure that their whole journey becomes very seamless? How do you do better than your competition? So we definitely do a very deep dive in terms of understanding the entire life cycle of an employee, and definitely introduce certain processes, certain touch points, and of course, definitely tools like ServiceNow, tools like Qualtrics, which helps us to take the feedback timely from the employees. So listening is also becoming very very important in this world where employees are working from anywhere and not getting connected physically, where earlier it was so easy to understand, listen to them, listen to their needs, which is changing now. And in our recent survey, if I can talk about, the entire priority index for an employee has completely changed. Earlier, they used to be more concentrated on compensation and careers, but now they are more on flexibility, work-life balance, benefits, well-being, and so on. So
Indeed,
definitely yes.
that's really what's keeping a lot of HR heads, awake at night. But technology, as you said, could be an enabler. Dr. Guru, what's been the biggest challenge that you have faced when it comes to these new age employees? And have you really seen those kind of returns from the investments that you've made?
Yeah, for a minute before I get into the investment and the return, just to supplement our previous speakers, at Omega, our motto as far as employee experience goes, it's to make every employee feel part of Omega. Are we able to do that? So employee experience, when I recall my journey of last 30 plus years in different organizations, few bosses, few incidents that comes to me very lively, though some of those organizations are not there today. That is the experience that gives the if you look at it, whether it is a customer, whether it is an employee, only the experience will enable the brand recall. So better employee experience definitely can translate into better customer experience. Looking at that, some of the investments what we made during pandemic and post pandemic period are, how do I connect with my 25,000 plus employees digitally, because they are not coming to office, and then connected. So we invested on in Fido, the Amber tool, and I'm seeing definitely the, at least the engagement levels are increasing. But that engagement levels, good old days, we say that engaged employees will give you higher productivity, etc. So the engagement is on one side, but the theory is no more engagement, it is becoming an experience. So one is the tool, but is there a way that we are also able to pick up their collective experience, is something which we are now venturing into. We did Mercer is doing us our ESAT, and then we got an ENPS score of plus 18 compared to previous year, and plus 5 compared to 2020. So we are able to see that is moving. But
Right.
is there a translation of that in terms of retention, in terms of productivity enhancement, etc.? That is the journey that we are now taking actually.
And we'll ask you more questions about that journey. Amit, I'm coming to you last, because would you call yourself a digital native company? In that sense, was your journey somewhat different? Was it somewhat easier? What are your priorities?
We are actually moving into a digital native organization. I wouldn't say that to begin with, that's where we are. We are what we call ourselves an established fintech. We are not a startup. We are an established fintech. We have been around for a long time, but we are transforming our organization into becoming a very digitally nimble, and taking our product suite there. What does it mean from an employee standpoint, right? So since this topic is primarily on how do we make our employees, our associates, that's what we call our employees, how do we make our associates lives easier in order for them to be able to service our customers better, who when if we are able to bring our customers, very happy customers back, they yield more profits for us. So we call this the service profit chain, which means engaged associates retain customers and bring more customers who generate more profits, and those profits then again get invested back into employees. So we are definitely leaning more towards getting completely digitally native as much as we can, and that means that we are trying to attract the best of the talent, and the best of the talent have some very specific needs, which need they are basically expecting customer grade experiences. Whatever they see outside the workplace, they want to experience the same inside the workplace. So everything that you provide them, every interface that as an organization you provide them, needs to work exactly like they experience, let's say, a Twitter, a Facebook, or a Google, or basically the most advanced applications that they are using outside. And
So
that is
basically,
becoming possible.
the employees of today's age have become as demanding as the customers. It's not just the customers alone,
Exactly.
especially when you have to address the needs in such a rapidly changing market. So, one of the words or aspects that we are talking about is really a unified experience. And Manoj, let me come to you here, because at ServiceNow, you are a platform of platforms, and you seek to really integrate um, all of the data points, all of the sort of tools which are available, and employees can then use that. Is that a big challenge that you see for companies in terms of being able to really unify and give that kind of unified employee experience who can then deliver to the customer at the other end?
Thanks a lot, Paramita, and wonderful viewpoints from each one of the panelists. If I have to talk about a unified employee experience, let me start up with an anecdote. A few years back, we have seen an advertisement for a scooter that says, "Why should boys have all the fun?" The same word. I'm not sure whether my chief strategic officer knew about this advertisement or not. He tossed a term, "Why should customers have all the fun?" So I'm repeating, why should customers have all the fun? Because the employees are all the more important in a ecosystem for us to drive a greater customer experience, which actually is going to result in a business growth or a business resilience. So, having said that, the employee experience is going to play a very important aspect. When we talk about employee experience, unifying the experience, it becomes a critical aspect when it comes to bringing the right tools which enable and empower and give the right entitlement for the employees. So it's end of the day, it's about giving the right information at the right time and with the right platform. That is very important. We at ServiceNow, we look at employee experience as a very important aspect, because when you look at an employee and an enterprise have developed hundreds of applications over the years. So we call it as a silos of excellence. They are excellent tools, but they are all in silos. How do you bring one unified experience to an employee? By building a layer over and above, through which an employee should be able to go and access whatever information he needs. Let's say
Right.
he has a problem with the payroll. How the payroll problem can be a financial computation problem, or it could be a IT related problem. So it has to go to the right team to get addressed. That is what ServiceNow does. It brings the employee
So
to
you sort
one
of
lane.
integrate, yeah,
Absolutely.
all of the data points and all
Yes.
of the information that an employee needs, and really empower them to give the solutions that the customer demands. In fact, I want to ask DJ this, and of course of Yash Technologies. DJ, as an HR head, pre-COVID, companies invested, especially a lot of the new age companies, in these fancy offices with ping pong tables and what have you, cafes which served all kinds of foods, just to keep the employee happy and really give them that experience. What is that still a very much the the physical part of that interaction? How important is it still? I mean, what are those important sort of pillars that employees count on? Is it merely just flexibility and work life balance, or they want the whole package?
Definitely, they want the whole package for sure. But as we speak today, we are building a very huge campus. We have invested almost $40 million in Indore, a small city in Madhya Pradesh. But yes, all these things are important, and somewhere, be it employee or be it company, both are expecting this to happen so that both can meet each other. There are certain challenges which companies are facing because employees are working remotely. We all have heard about moonlighting, and that's a big noise right now in the industry. But I don't want to put that topic right now. But all those things are important. Employees also want to come back to offices someday. I think it is a matter of time, but we all will see that it will not be all 5 days working, but it will be a good 3 days, 4 days working back in the offices. That's what we are anticipating, and that will definitely help employees and companies both.
So that that flexibility is there, but at the same time that physical presence, and of course giving them those kind of tools. Amit, let me come to you here from the point that DJ just made, which is about really when you're investing these kind of millions of dollars in terms of tools and what have you for really enhancing the employee experience. ho- at what point in time do you start measuring those metrics of improving productivity, the returns on investment, where you actually see the kind of return on the dollars that you're investing into these new age tools?
No, absolutely. Great question. I think what has ended up happening because of the pandemic, like, and some of our other panelists are making the same point, which is the experience of our associates have changed, our employees have changed. It's now a combination of the physical world and the digital world, and they're able to provide the work services from there. But with regards to the investment itself, I can tell you that in our organization, we had made some additional investments in expanding capacity. This was prior to the pandemic. But as the pandemic hit, and as we started looking at how the whole world is now operating with 100% remote work, and we were still able to get a lot of work done, we kind of figured out very early in the game that it is going to be a hybrid world. And so we were very early at that point of time to take the call that we may not require the level of expansion that we were originally thinking that we would, that we had originally planned to do. Because employees and associates, like, again, coming back to what we call them, employees are looking for an integrated experience. They are not looking for, give me a ping pong table at work, and then at home, then I'm just left to myself. The organization has to give an integrated experience, whether they are at home, whether they are at work, or whether they're anywhere else in a cafe. They should be able to experience doing the work exactly the same way as they are sitting at work. And now, in our context, because we are a fintech and we are also regulated, we have to have some additional measures in terms of data protection and so on and so forth, in order for us to be able to allow some of those aspects. But in terms of the investment, I would say that a lot of investment that have gone in our case is to create that integrated hybrid experience, as opposed to just devoting all our resources into building the best physical world that we know of.
I think great point. Dr. Guru, would you agree that integrated hybrid resources is the way to go, and eventually you'll start seeing the returns, because it's an endless journey otherwise, isn't it? I mean, you keep investing, perhaps in the hope that customers will continue to be more and more engaged and deliver on those returns as you invest in these new tools.
Yeah, so when we look at, I completely agree with his point, but what we are looking at, this is the need of the hour for any business to invest. It is not to create employee experience, because we should not be mixing our investment for integrated hybrid work location or work creation to creating enough employee experience, because the business needs are driving those things. But how, while we are doing it, our focus is to run our business and then scale our business, is what this technology investment, what I understood from physical space to hybrid space, and then irrespective of whether we are sitting at office or outside, the same kind of ability to perform is there. Will that translates into employee experience? May not, because that requires different tools and technologies. So what we are investing for a replacement for a hard offices and the cafeteria, that experiences requires something different. That's my opinion.
Okay, great point. Let me come to Hari here, because Hari, would you say that, and I'll pick up on that term business needs, would you say that again, Your business needs are perhaps very different from, say, some of our panelists here today. And hence, you are catering your investments and expectations accordingly.
You're very right. In fact, that's what I was thinking when the rest of the panel were making their points, because we have a very very distributed workforce. We have something like 1,200 odd branches spread all across the country, and about 30 to 40% of our workforce, probably their first job when they join this bank. So the challenges, the kind of requirements at that level is very very different from maybe a very integrated office or two offices and everybody working together. So this is one part of it. The second part of it is what the employee also requires, not only at their work but out of their homes, etc. For instance, today we had to look at a situation where people were afraid to touch each other, for example. So if you're with a customer, or the customer doesn't want to, actually be in the same space as the employee, but business has to happen. So what we had to find out, solutions like how do you pass on a message effectively, both to the employee and to the customer, and how do we equip the employee to deal with this kind of a situation. That is one of the big challenges, and technology obviously came. The technology may not be very very advanced, it may be basic, but we had to figure out a way to get it done. This is one part of
Right.
it. Imagine, you are onboarding 2,000 employees in a year, and maybe it's their first job. How do you help them to understand what the job is about? And I'm talking very specifically of the last 2 years. And today it's probably a little different. You can't travel, they can't come over. Okay, you can do virtually, of course, but that the skills required to impart that kind of an experience, you allow
Right.
half of your workforce to work from home, because you're a very regulated industry.
Has actually helped you come up with some of those solutions, and I'm glad you brought up the point that yours is again a very different business need as opposed to what we are hearing from some of the other panelists. And let me come to you now, Manoj, because and especially in India, the kind of diverse range of companies that we have, and it appears that every company, depending upon where they are in their journey, need these kind of customized tools rather than a cookie cutter approach. So, how do you approach a client's needs in that sense? I mean, with some of the solutions that you have on board, how do you really customize, whether it is for a big or a small entity?
Yeah, Paramita, I don't need to go anywhere. The panelists have touched upon various points. I can take a couple of examples and talk through. Just now, Mr. Vellur had mentioned about communication. See, communication is a very important aspect when it comes to experience. So, how can you use the technology to deliver a seamless communication, a consistent communication, and a very importantly, a curated communication? For example, a women employee in his organization requires a certain kind of communication to go to them. Vis-a-vis an employee in Bangalore in a particular location, need a different sort of communication. Or a person, or the set of employees who are due for laptop refresh, need different sort of communications. In the digitally divided, and if you look at his organization, it's a very highly distributed workforce. So the technology can get them to communicate in a curated and also in a personalized manner. The second part, Mr. Vellur was talking about onboarding and the time to value. See, when you hire an employee, or rather, when you are interviewing a person and then bringing them as a candidate and converting them into employee, it's a journey. How do you give the right experience? It's a complex workflow. You schedule an interview, you complete the interview, get the feedback from the hiring manager, and give the candidate the right engagement, the passive engagement before he joins in, ensures he joins. So it's a process. Once he gets onboarded, and then how he gets to know about his priorities, what is he supposed to do in a 30, 60, 90, what are his priorities, what is his company culture, All of this, it requires a solid workflow. That is what ServiceNow does. We are the company of workflow, and we bring in all these complex workflows for the employees to access it at ease.
Okay, so clearly you've addressed some of those points, and one of the critical
Yes.
points is really communication at scale. Because let me come back to DJ of Yash Technologies. Automation has been a huge focus area and investment point as well, with the help of technology that we hear most companies, if not all companies, talk about today. So how do you balance sort of investments into upskilling and reskilling employees and automation within your company?
I mean, as I said before this start of this session, that this year or next year as well, our theme is inclusive transformation inside out. And when we talk about transformation, I think digital transformation is quite apt. As we speak right now, we have implemented ServiceNow, we have implemented SAP Finance, we have implemented Qualtrics, which is again a feedback mechanism tool. We already have SuccessFactor, and we are just trying to integrate all these tools into one unified system to create a unified experience for an employee. In terms of the ROI on some of these investments are quite easy to calculate most of the time, because if I look at my utilization, that has really jumped from 69% to 81%. If I look at my employee engagement score, it has jumped 7% higher. If I look at my process scores for some of these processes, including rewards and everything, it has jumped by 5%. So overall, most of this automation is one hand definitely helping me to retain talent. If I look at my retention, my attrition has gone down by 12% as compared to last quarter. Um, so overall, this is helping me for a better employee experience and definitely a good ROI.
Amit, what would you like to add to that? And we've also heard about a lot of frustration amongst employees in terms of of course whether it is, we briefly alluded to moonlighting, but also attrition rates are sky high. I mean, is retention a key challenge? I mean, is that a key focus area for you?
Oh, absolutely, Parvata. Thanks. I think it's a very pertinent question for us as much as it is for the industry. And in some ways, I blame the industry to have created it, and now the industry has to solve for it. Every organization is looking at it very, very, keenly, and also trying to be differentiating in terms of attracting and retaining the talent. I would say though that in terms of the retention of the employee, you can do as much as you want, but there are certain industry parameters that are at play, which is probably softening a little bit at this point of time, in my opinion. Over the next 6 months, some of those parameters are going to soften, which will probably work to bring an equilibrium in the industry. So I think we'll be in a far better position than we are right now. You mentioned about moonlighting. There are, of course, other panelists who alluded to some of the other frustrations, both on the side of the employees as well as employers, because each was dealing with their own set of challenges, because we are all trying to come to terms with what the pandemic has thrown to us. What the pandemic has done, and it has thrown unforeseen challenges to all of us, and so we are trying to resolve that. In terms of having specific retention strategies, I would say we are dealing with it in two or three primary ways. One is we have adopted a radically new way of communicating with our organization. We are calling it radical candor, which basically means that we are not going to be treating our employees as if they need to be spoon fed, they need to be dumb down every message. We are going to be saying things in a radically candor way. They are going to hear it as it is from us, and we would expect the same from them. We would expect them to be absolutely transparent with us about what they are thinking, what they are feeling, because a lot of times what is happening is the other trend that is in the industry is quiet quitting, right? So they're quiet for a bit and then just doing enough to keep it going, and at a certain point of time quitting. We would like candor as much as we expect that from us, as much as we expect that from our associates. We are trying to make the whole process of their life. We have saved a lot of time, like we also spoke about during the pandemic, in terms of commute. A lot of folks uh, don't have to commute now, and that saved us a lot of time. What are
Right.
organizations doing with that time, right? Are they asking associates to put the time back to more work? If that's what is happening, then obviously associates have the right to feel frustrated about it. So how are we as organizations helping our associates, giving them tools to help them, just uh, do what is essential, do a little bit more, but not enough to burn them out? How are we helping them help themselves?
So it's
These
a
are some of
complete
the
cultural
aspects.
shift, actually. It's a complete, cultural shift, what you're alluding to, Amit, that, you know,
Absolutely, absolutely.
absolutely. So let me bring in Dr. Guru here. I mean, is that something that you'd agree with the Dr. Guru? Because you've been, as you
Yes.
said, 30 odd years in the industry. Employees were treated very differently earlier to what they are being treated today.
No, no. What Amit said is absolutely, because that is the experience we need to create. The tools, what we are going to give it to them to make them perform better, use their time as their time, and then not that they're committing time to be used for us. And we also seen that, hybrid model, when it is done, people have to come for at least 2 or 3 days in a week to office. Again, that commute happens, and then somewhere the commute may not happen. And we also have a challenge. We spoke about communication, we spoke about distributed workforce, about 1200 branches, etc. And it is nothing different for us. Also, we have seen the communication required for a night shift employee is completely different from a day shift employee. The same communication, if I am doing it in my Bangalore office or in the Philippines, Manila office, or if it is in Trichy or Coimbatore office, it requires a different flavor. And the day shift requires different flavor. The skill set requires a different flavor. So some of this technology what we have invested in, what it does in terms of onboarding, truly it starts capturing that 30, 60, 90, what you said. In addition to that, it goes beyond their 6 months, and then anniversary. And also for the existing employees, one set of people who are joining the industry for the first time, but there are people who are in the industry. So we have four generations of people working in the same organization, and each of them are required a different treatment, different experiences to be given. And we cannot have one fit for all kind of questions and then interaction in communication, etc.
Right. So it
I
has to
think I
be a lot
agree
of
with you.
customization as per the circumstances. Okay, let's talk about the
Absolutely.
future. Because as people are coming back to work, as you said, 2 or 3 days minimum, most companies are imposing it both in India and abroad. Uh, Hari, what does the future look like to you in terms of your digital transformation? What is going to be your priority areas in terms of employee experience and hence customer experience in terms of the bridge between the two? What are you going to focus on?
Well, certainly, let me speak about from the employee experience. Let me speak something about training them or equipping them. Let me put it as equipping them. We've recently been exploring, how can we use something like Google Glass, for example. We sat through some demonstrations very recently, where it was three-dimensional, the experience, and what we probably would take 2 hours or 3 hours to convey. I think all it took was 20 minutes to understand what was being, conveyed to the employee. And this is not necessarily about work. It could be anything. I mean, take something very mundane like a POSH guideline, etc., which we require every employee to understand. When you put it on a 3D, it becomes so obvious, and the kind of savings you can, in time and money, which you can have when you adopt that technology. And I'm saying that as one small example of what is possible.
It's
And
it's a very rich and I think a very potent example in terms of
yeah,
really bringing that message across, as you said, and really
yeah,
technology is going to be enhancing communication tools. Would it be fair to say that that's going to be something that you'll be focusing on?
absolutely, absolutely. We are
Okay.
thinking very seriously about this.
DJ, I know you have a big campus coming up. You want to get your employees back on board. What else is Yash planning? And you as an HR head?
when I said campus, it doesn't mean that everybody will come back to offices, but definitely whatever time they spend at our offices, they should really enjoy that. They should really have a greater experience, and that's what we are trying to do. At the same time, we are also investing, as I said, on the entire digital transformation so that people can work from anywhere and have the similar experience. And that's an equal priority, and that's going to be the future for sure.
Amit, you mentioned a lot of sort of hot topics right now as far as employees are concerned. You also told us that you expect the market to cool off a little bit. Does that mean that companies will sort of take the foot off the pedal as far as investments are concerned on the employee experience side, or not necessarily?
No, if anything, Paramita, I expect that companies like us, organizations like us, will be investing even more on not just communication, but actually collaborative tools for our associates to be able to add value to our customers. Because what is going to make the real difference here, and I certainly foresee a hybrid environment in the future, irrespective of where we land in terms of the pandemic. In a hybrid environment, we will need the ability to not just communicate more from an organization associate perspective, but also between associates. How do they collaborate? How do they design together? How do they code together? How do they service together? How do they collaborate? Because that is going to, in my opinion, be how well we design the tools and deploy them and allow our associates to take advantage of them will determine the real differentiation between one organization and another.
Okay, I'm going to pick up some of those terms that you used: candor, collaboration, better communication, customization. Manoj, final word comes to you, because you're hearing from potential, if not existing clients of yours. So, how is the industry and companies such as yours going to go ahead and meet up to some of these challenges and expectations when it comes to enhanced employee experience?
Post and pre-COVID, Paramita, we are seeing employee experience conversations are becoming more and more relevant. And I would equate this to a cost-cutting measure or a cost optimization measure. Every organization is taking up cost optimization or a cost-cutting measures on a continuous basis. Similarly, employee experience will also become a continuous topic, and it will become a board relevant topic, forever. That is what I'm foreseeing based on my conversations with HR leaders and business leaders. And employee experience combined with the strategies around the productivity improvement, which will definitely have a positive impact on bottom line. And the technologies and tools like ServiceNow is definitely going to help the CXOs to implement and adopt it at a much faster rate and realize it faster.
Well, that's a wrap on this discussion about how to optimize employee experience, because that is a trend which is here to stay, especially in today's hybrid world. And the demands are going to be far greater on technology and the tools which are available. Thank you for joining us on this special COO Collective series.
Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective.